Wait for it. Wait for it. And we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans and one chaos coordinator geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So, without further ado, we're going to let our guest, Mr. Forrest Jones, introduce himself to you, our listeners and viewers at home.
Hey everyone, Forrest Jones here. I'm not really sure how to introduce myself, but I guess I'm excited to be on the show. Honestly, I'm really nervous. I've never been on a podcast, but I'm very, I guess, honored that somebody would actually consider me important enough to be on here.
So, this is where you talk about yourself. So, I don't know, you like long walks on the short piers and swimming with sharks because, they're good company. I don't know, something.
Hey,
Make it up.
Okay. Well, yeah, actually, it's funny you mentioned that. It actually is one of my dreams to go shark, be in a shark cage. That is one of my dreams. No, I guess you could call me a closet nerd. I have, 3 kids and a wife. Somehow I convinced someone to marry me. And she stay at home. And growing up, I lived pretty much in Middle Earth and Harry Potter. Like that was my go-to. I grew up with a single mom who was working hard. And so I just made myself a cloak. I had a little toy Sting and I just go out and run around and, do whatever I wanted to.
That's pretty freaking rad.
And but then I had to stop doing that because the kids started making fun of me and, kids can be really mean. So I kind of shut that down and grew up a little bit. And recently, since I have been writing some of my books, I've been learning to embrace that side of me again. And I think it's really been good for me. I've always had a crazy imagination and I've always loved anything to do with fantasy. Like Lord of the Rings, I'm obsessed with. I've seen the extended versions like multiple times. My wife and I are even talking about learning some Elvish, like, I love fantasy, like Harry Potter. I've gotten into Brandon Sanderson lately. But it's been really hard for me to embrace that just because the world's not really appreciative of nerds. But I find as you get older, adults don't really care. You've got.
Here's a funny thing, Forrest, is I had a similar thing. I was into comic books. I was also into fantasy and sci-fi and all those things, but all things geek related, right? But I was really into comic books. That's what I was into. And I got made fun of for that all the way into high school because I was there with my drawing tablet or my drawing pad, and I'm just knocking out comic books, creating characters. You fast forward 15 years later, these guys are reposting things that I've posted. Like, hey, I knew this dude back when. These are guys that used to beat me up and put me in wall lockers. And they're like, wow. Oh, man, this was my boy back in high school. I'm like, boy, you took my lunch money, bro.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is your future.
Yeah, I remember I had 3 best friends in high school, and we would legitimately sword fight with sticks. And they were way better than me. They were fast. I had a friend, he was super overweight, but like the dude could move. And I was like, how do you move that fast? So it was just one of those things. Like, I was
human orcas.
Huh?
Orcas, because they're big and chubby, but they're like ridiculously athletic for some reason.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And then I guess that was kind of a little bit of the childhood. But I actually, this book, The Lost Prince, ironically enough, one day because I have this imagination, I just decided, I don't remember when, but I was 12 years old, and I remember listening to the Lord of the Rings soundtrack and just writing how the music dictated, whether it was nice and flowy or like super, da-da-da, I would just write as it dictated. And then I wrote 4 notebooks of this story. And then about 10 years later, maybe 12 years later, I found it when we were moving to where we are now. And I was like, bro, this is like a decent story. And it's like 90% done. I should take this and just roll with it. And that's what I did. And that's actually where The Lost Prince came from. Was I took most of the characters, changed some of the stuff, changed the story. But like I kept all of the names, like for the places to visit and kind of the general story. and then now I have 2 books from that. So it's just really fun to me how it all started like that.
So what we're saying is there is Forrest Jones who's co-writing with 10-year-old Forrest Jones.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
All right, so I want to go back a little bit. You said your dream is to go into a shark cage. So, Nick, are you going to go diving with the sharks too, or is that a bridge too far, Mr. Navy boy?
Navy boy, what?
You're in the Border Patrol Navy. It's almost as cool as the Cajun Navy.
I don't know. I can tell you what I used to call it when I was in South Texas, but I'm trying not to get canceled this week.
So would you go
swim? No, I swam with sharks. I swam with sharks in the Red Sea when I dove the Thistlegorm, which was a British merchant ship that got blown in half in World War II. Still had all the jeeps and bikes and stuff in there, and it was swarming with white-tip reef sharks. So,
wow.
But they're really chill. They're more curious than aggressive. They'd come up, they'd bump you. I'd be like, "Hey, no," touch them on the nose, and then they were like, "All right, cool. I saw what I need to see," and they'd bounce. And then the next one would show up.
So I went when I was
great whites. No, you're not getting me in that fucking cage.
I've seen Meg. I know how that works.
Negative.
When I was in Boy Scouts in, I guess, middle school, high school, early high school, they had we won a free thing to go for this dive school, but it's in an indoor pool that's like just really deep. It's a training thing. And I couldn't get past the compressed air. Like I felt like I was suffocating even breathing in the canned stuff. So I'm like, yep, nope, diving's not for me. I'll let someone else do
it. I've never been diving. I would like to go. I'd like to do some scuba diving, and I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Oh, it's a blast.
Yeah.
Until you rupture your eardrum, and then it doesn't feel so good. But that was my fault.
So I got to answer your guys' questions that you sent me, like the whole those 3 questions ever. I'm actually if I had to pick, I'm more of a Star Wars guy. But
we were going to ask you that, but we were just going to free flow a little bit to get to know you.
Oh no, that's fine. Okay. Sorry,
I'm a Star Wars guy too.
Yeah.
So. We do have to ask you the religion questions, and since you sort of jumped the shark a little bit, see what I did there, Nick? So the religion question.
This is why we're family friendly.
That's right. Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly.
My wife's actually seen all of them, and she loves Firefly the most. I've only seen like the little movie Firefly. But yeah, definitely. I mean, Star Wars. I don't like any of the newer nonsense, but the original trilogy and then 1, 2, and 3. I'm pretty. I like, but so all these spinoffs are just nonsense. I don't care for. And then I've seen some Star Treks, but I haven't really seen any of the original stuff. Although I wouldn't be opposed. I just know it goes several decades, and I don't have the time to watch that much Star Trek.
So the girls tend to pick Firefly because they've got Nathan Fillion, and the men tend to go Star Trek because Princess Leia on the hut scene. I'm just saying.
That's
men
right.
of the generation know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
She's right up there with second place for me with Xena Warrior Princess.
It's funny. My wife also likes that show. I've never seen that one, but I did buy her the entire series for Christmas one year. All 10 is the whole big 10 episodes.
I mean, I'll be your wife for that set. Damn, that's an amazing. It came off of the Hercules set with what's that guy's name that did the Hercules?
I can tell you. My wife would.
Kevin Sorbo?
Huh?
No, it's the Hercules series. But I know he was Kevin Sorbo. There we go.
That's right.
Don't ask me why I know that. I'm ashamed.
But yeah, Kevin Sorbo, apparently he was pushing his body so hard to get whatever shape that he had back then without the steroids that he was having a heart attack a day. Like a mini stroke or whatever.
Wow, that's awesome. I mean, that's horrible, but that's awesome.
Yeah, he was fucking hardcore. Freaking hardcore. Sorry, family friendly peoples.
We already screwed that up, but sorry. That was me about 5 minutes in.
But yeah, so I don't know, I like Star Trek too. I mean, there's parts of it I don't fall for or don't care for, mostly because it's too utopian for me. It just kind of goes against human nature. No money, nobody has a job, they just do what they want to do. Nothing would get done and everyone would be high all the time. Like we saw what people did during COVID with their stimulus checks. Like
Right.
it wasn't like they were creating high art because now they didn't have to work. So yeah, I don't know. But the replicators were kind of cool. Or no, the Borg was kind of cool. It was underdone, but I like the concept was kind of cool. Everybody would go on the holodeck. I mean, we'd all do horrible things that we wouldn't want our mother to read about if we had the holodeck. Have you seen the Orville?
No, but I want to. I've seen bits and clips of it, and I'm actually like I love the guy who created Orville. He's done Family Guy and some of those other adult stuff, which it's kind of like a guilty pleasure. I don't watch them too often, but I've wanted to watch it. I've seen bits and pieces of
it. So the cool thing when they opened is they had the scene where the either the driver or the engineer, I can't remember. He was in the holodeck fighting an orc in samurai armor because that's what he was using. He's like living out his nerd fantasies in this holodeck because why? I mean, like, why wouldn't you do that? And he's having like these deep theological discussions and philosophical discussions with this giant orc who's, between trying to kill each other. It's hilarious. So yeah, I get it. But yeah, for me, I don't know. Star Trek was just a little too utopian. And we did forget to mention, although he hinted at it briefly, but we did find him through a friend of the show, Hunter K. Wallace. They are friends from way back in the Wayback Machine, and so when we heard it was his debut novel, I thought, hey, let's give him some visibility. But because we are polytheistic here at the Blasters and Blades podcast, Game of Thrones, The Wheel of Time, or Chronicles of Narnia?
Well, probably Chronicles of Narnia, simply because I haven't heard too many good things about Wheel of Time, and I do not have the guts to read the books yet. I had a friend who was a huge fan of Robert Jordan, and he read all the books, and I heard the TV show sucked. So, and then Game of Thrones, I haven't even ventured into doing that yet. So yeah, Chronicles of Narnia for sure.
Okay.
Read the books for the books.
Okay. My problem with, so I never watched the Game of Thrones because I generally have a rule. If the show came out first, I'll watch the show, then read the books that spin off. If the book comes out first, I'll read that, then watch the show because I want to kind of start with the original. But I won't start a series I know I'm never going to get an ending for because, like, my hair's already falling out. Why make it fall out faster? Right?
The series is the ending. That's what it is.
That's my biggest pet peeve in anything is when you kill off a main. I hate it. The reason I read books is because I like to see the main character survive. Like, I'm already living life. People die all the time. Like, I don't want to see a character that I love and get involved with, mentally die. Like, I don't like that. So he kills off all of his characters. So I'm not a big fan of that.
And I don't know if he was joking when he said this, though. He said, J.R.R. Martin, he's like, when anybody asks me when the next book's going to come out, I kill a Stark.
That tracks. No, I don't mind characters dying if you make it impactful, right? Like, because you can't have a war novel without people dying. And sometimes more people die capriciously for no reason other than right place, wrong time, right? Like, and I get that too, as long as you don't overdo it.
Yep.
But if you're going to have one of the main characters die, then you want that mother to go out like a champ, right? Like, he better be like holding the line at the Alamo, screaming for God and country or whatever. Like,
the Mongol hordes bearing down on him. He's got one sword and one arrow and half of
right. Like Gondor calls for aid and he stands in the breach, right?
Yeah. Cool guy stuff.
Cool, right. Like, make it count. Like, you can let the peons that are just unnamed peasant, right? Like, they can die random arrows, but main characters deserve a main tag.
You stood no chance.
Yeah, like Boromir, like that dude died really well. We don't like that he died, but
boss.
Well, 6 arrows in the chest, fighting off a bunch of orcs. That's a good main character death.
Yeah, I agree. He was getting after it.
I tend not to like grimdark either, just because, like you said, the world is dark enough. I've been to dark places. I want some chance of hope in what I read. I don't mind darkness as in like dark settings because as long as there's the chance for a better tomorrow. I just don't want that light that we see at the end of the tunnel be the train bearing down on us, right? Like I want to know there's a chance for it to get better.
Train.
Right. Although the train to Busan, that Korean zombie one now, that's a train movie I can get behind.
Train to Busan. Haven't seen
it. Don't watch the sequel. You'll be disappointed.
Yeah, it's very dark. Sorry, my kids are trying to come in and bombard this.
Kids do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got 4 kids, so 2 older ones, and so they like to come and bombard things.
So what I'm hearing is you need a hobby.
But I don't.
So the next question is, of course, one of the crying shames of adulthood and growing up is people stop asking the really important questions. So we're bringing that back, and I'm going to ask you, sir, the most important question of the night: what is your favorite dinosaur?
Oh boy. Well, obviously it's the Velociraptor, but I'm not talking about the Utah Raptors that they have in Jurassic Park. I'm talking about the real, 2-foot tall Velociraptor. But I mean, because like I said, I'm a huge dinosaur fan. I also Therizinosaurs are pretty awesome as far as dinosaurs go. Like that's a pretty hardcore bird. If it's a bird, I think it's a bird type dinosaur. And then, honestly, those would probably be at least my top 2 comparably. Because Velociraptor is amazing, just what it can do, and I even like the Jurassic Park ones, even though they're not accurate to the size. I still like those ones as well.
And what's his name trained them like they were attack dogs?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I was also used to like pterodactyls growing up, just because the idea of them flying, like, there's just something cool about that. So, all right. And then finally, because this is the Blast and Blade podcast, and we are affiliate sponsors of the Coffee Brand Coffee Company, and since we are now civilized human beings, we are no longer knuckle-dragging troglodytes. Coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
So what's funny is I actually don't drink either. I drink tea every once in a while, but I drink mostly energy, my own brand of energy drinks, and then water or juice.
What is the energy drink that's your brand of choice?
Energy drinks? It's called XS, like literally XS energy.
Never heard of that one.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all online. There's no sugar. There's no there's like 15 calories, but that's my choice of drink if I have to drink something, or just water. Maybe every once in a while I'll have some hot chocolate or something.
Okay. Yeah, the hot chocolate's definitely appropriate for the season because obviously we're recording this right before Thanksgiving, and we'll be airing it in the lead up to Christmas. So it's time.
I could say eggnog for the season too. I like to dabble in some eggnog. Of course, non-alcoholic eggnog, just straight up eggnog.
What's the fun in that?
I don't know. It tastes good.
I guess that's one way to do it. So I'm guessing you don't put peppermint schnapps in your hot chocolate.
No. So it was funny.
For eggnog, I put brandy in it, just a little bit, like maybe a shot's worth, and it's pretty enjoyable.
Well,
eggnog by itself is good too.
Well, I mean, so what my family's done in the past is we'll do Sprite in it, but we actually don't drink. It's kind of part of our religion that we don't drink coffee or really kind of any teas, and also alcohol. So we're a bit different. But yeah, so I've learned to adapt to enjoy other things.
Whatever works for you, sir. No judgment here. The more coffee for the rest of us, right, Nick?
That's absolutely right.
Yes, sir. Which I probably shouldn't do because I have hypertension, but whatever.
I mean, I just got a bigger cup, so when the doctor does ask, I can say, like, I only have 1 cup a day, sir.
Yeah. It's a giant cup, 64 ounces, but.
So the other day, when we do business meetings for Handley, or well, I guess technically Bayonet Books, we tend to do it at Cracker Barrel because we can eat cheap and write it off as a business expense legally, all above board. And when we were going through, we were waiting in line this time because people have off for the holidays, and they had this like 4 foot by 6 foot Reese's Kit Kat, or no, it was Kit Kat, And I just looked at that and I'm like, I imagine someone's going to eat that all in one setting and tell the doctor, I only had one Kit Kat today. Because it's so freaking big. And I'm like,
That's
I
awesome.
can't even hate them. So, all right. So what is your, for Christmas, since they're going to be recording this as we lead up to it, do you have like a favorite holiday Christmas meal like item? Is it something specific for your family?
No, I pretty much eat whatever we're kind of given. I'll eat pretty much anything. I guess my favorite kind of pie, you could say, for Christmas, which I usually don't get too much, but I really like pistachio pies. My first go-to.
What is that? Pistachio?
Huh?
Pistachio, like the nut?
Yeah. I don't know how they made it, but yeah, it was like it's called pistachio pie. It looks like it's like minty green, really. And then obviously, of course, the next.
I've always wanted to try that. It looks good.
It was great, and they also make it in a pudding form. It was good too.
What? I've had pistachio ice cream, and I thought it was awesome. And it was green in color.
I have never heard of these things. Are you making these up to mess with me?
No, it's
sir.
real. I had it one
These
time.
are things that exist in the world. You need to get out more, Jam.
Apparently, I need to get out more. Because I didn't know that was a thing. All right. What about you, Nick? I mean, we've talked about it some, but is pistachio a seasonal thing for you or just a year round?
I like pistachios all year round. And now they're like mixing it with like different seasonings and stuff, which has been amazing. There's this like chili one that I really like.
So the
ice cream is awesome.
I've been working with a nutritionist. I think we've talked about this a little bit, but one of the things he says, I'm trying to get my calories down, but obviously with the head injury, like knowing that I'm full isn't always on target. And so like one of the things he said is to know that I've eaten enough without, going over and tracking it. It was like, I should be eating more protein. So like nuts, because beef jerky is too dang expensive.
And then, just make it yourself. And even then,
yeah. So even then, the meat, unless you're hunting the meat yourself, then it gets really cheap. But yeah, so I've been doing a lot of like pistachios and almonds and stuff. And they have the salt and pepper, the sea salt and pepper flavored one, surprisingly good. A little bit of a kick to it. I don't know what it is about the pepper that gives it that kind of. It must not be straight black pepper. It must be something else. But it's just labeled as salt and pepper, and it is delicious. Totally a good snack.
Cool.
So,
I do like sea salt.
Yeah, it's.
Have you had Celtic salt?
I've not ever. No, Celtic salt. I don't think so.
I don't even know what that is.
It comes with a little grinder. Oh yeah, it's awesome. It's a finishing salt, so it's after your meal's already done. It's just to season it on top. It's amazing. It's got a really good flavor to it.
Wow. I'll have to look around for it next time I'm looking for some.
I had
salt.
to order mine on Amazon. I tried by grocery stores, and they're like, Celtic salt. What, you mean this? I'm like, that is kosher salt, sir. That is completely different.
Huh.
Is kosher salt actually just prepared differently, or is it like a different kind of salt? Because I've seen it and I'm like, what's the difference between that?
Different kind of salt. It's a different kind of salt. It has really no nutritional value. Like salt does have a nutritional value. It's an electrolyte. Kosher salt isn't. I use it mainly to clean my cast irons.
Okay. Yeah, I got to do that. I got some
really grainy. Yeah, and it gets that good scrub going.
Wow.
Okay. I didn't know that. So I've been doing a lot of salt. Well, not as much as I would like, but because I've been like my go-to snack is now carrots with a little bit of just a little bit of salt, maybe a little bit of ranch for flavoring.
Throw some pepper in there, dude. Thank me later.
Pepper? I don't think I've ever put pepper on carrots.
Yeah, some fresh ground cracked pepper. Good.
Yeah, I get the one where you got to twist it to get it to come out, like where it crushes it on command or whatever. Like I use that too.
Yeah, it's cracked pepper.
That's better than when you get it like the pulverized stuff in the little tubes.
Yeah, I found very few products, and they're usually labeled like restaurant styled black pepper because it's a little bit grainier than like the table stuff you get like in the 2-pack. So,
yeah, I actually learned
food cast now.
Yeah. So I actually was cooking a soup the other day, and they said, it's the certain kind of black pepper corn, and it's like just put 2, and I'm like, 2, they're kind of small, so I threw like 8 in there, and oh my goodness, the flavor was. I had to double the recipe and then split it between 2 crock pots,
Nice.
and ended up canning like 12 quarts of it because I just had to mellow
my.
the flavor.
Send a couple my way, dude. You know I'm gonna eat it.
Yeah, I've been up in my game canning stuff because I'm working through slowly like all of the like Campbell's type soup cans and replacing it with stuff I make myself. I don't know if it's like actually cheaper, but it's certainly healthier. None of the preservatives. So we've been swapping it out, and so I've been making lots of it lately. It's a fun hobby,
Yeah,
and
my wife does. She's big into canning.
Well, so canning doesn't work, and then we'll air the commercial in a minute. Canning doesn't work as well on a flat glass stovetop as it does like the gas or the electric coil range, which means that I have to constantly stand there because it doesn't maintain constant pressure or temperature. And so I'm constantly like, so I've got to stand there for the entire almost 2-hour process of canning this, but it's an excuse to listen to audiobooks. Because I'm working, see, and then I can write that all.
And it's a tax write-up. It's a tax
right
write-up.
Market research, baby. Market research. So it's my Zen moment. Like the kids know not to mess with me when I'm canning. Just leave me alone. Let Daddy listen to his book.
Yep.
So anyway, all right. So we're gonna air that beautiful bean footage, and thank you, Madam Jenna, who is sponsoring this episode. So today we're gonna shamelessly. Yeah, we're going to shamelessly shill for the woman.
Love it. Roll that bean footage.
The necromantic magic of the Great Lich has held sway over the world for 100 years. Can a young knight of the god of death and the last priestess of the goddess of life destroy him before their homeland falls? The only survivor of his convoy, journeyman knight Darian, is entrusted with an ancient scroll and one mission. Return the scroll to the High Temple in Hothan, no matter the cost. He never expected that journey to include stumbling onto the last healer in the world. Now he must take not only the scroll but the woman across the kingdom to safety, each step dogged by the relentless undead. Death's Knight, Book 1 in the completed War of the Lich series by Matthew T. Summers and Jenna Ray.
All right. Thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude. And with that, we're going to get right back to talking about this book. So let me pull up that beautiful cover. So first off, what made you pick this as your cover image? Like, obviously you hired it out, so you worked with an art company, but what made you pick this as the image?
Well, it's one of the scenes in the book. It wasn't done quite like I would have had it done. I just didn't have too many choices for edits. But yeah, it's one of the, so Taryn's on the front there, and he's in the Tasman desert, and he gets caught. He runs into this creature, and so I thought this scene was just really cool. And I remember seeing a Jim Butcher book, a series, Codex Alera series, which was amazing. And he always had a scene a scene on his cover from his books, and I just thought it was really cool because whenever I would read it, I'd go, "Oh, there's that scene from the cover," and it was just cool. So I really liked it. In fact, book 2 has one of my favorite scenes from the book. So yeah, it was kind of like my favorite scene that happened in the book.
Who wrote Codex Alera? Was that Brandon Sanderson or Jim Butcher?
Jim Butcher.
Okay, that's the one where somebody said, like, if I remember correctly, that's the one where he got in an argument on the internet because a lot of cool things can happen on the internet when you argue. I don't care what Stabby says. Nick and I are right on this one, but somebody was like someone was telling him, if I remember the story correctly, like it doesn't matter about the prose, it's all about the story. And he basically said he can make any crappy story sing if you write it right. And they dared him. It was like Pokemon meets something.
Yeah, it was Pokemon and the Lost Legion. Yeah, he was in an argument with some of his writer friends, and they're like, nothing new. There's no such thing as real story. He goes, give me two opposing things, and I can write a book about it. And so they said, okay, Pokemon and the Roman Lost Legion, and he wrote 6 freaking books about it.
I was like, gotta show them.
They're amazing. If you haven't read,
I don't learn them.
Yeah, that's one way to prove them wrong. And I'm all about hateful spite and revenge. Like I'm half Scottish and half German. We basically invented that shit.
Yeah.
We can hold a grudge like a mother. And Nick, our people gave the world beer and whiskey. You're welcome.
Yeah. Whiskey was invented to keep the Irish from taking over the earth.
So it does make me wonder what the hobbits in Lord of the Rings were doing with all those potatoes. I'm just saying, vodka might have been on the table.
They are definitely vodka people.
It would make so much of their culture make sense. Like the hangover cure that's why second breakfast. Because they were a little too tipsy for first breakfast, so they had to split it in two.
Well, you had first breakfast, second breakfast, 11 C's, lunch, supper, dinner.
Yep.
It was definitely an Irish meal plan.
All right, so obviously, you pick something from the book. Is this set on Earth? Is it set on a second world? Sort of, like what's the setting of this story?
So the setting is it's a different world. It's called New Calendria, and the name actually came from, it's actually a nickname that my mother-in-law gave to my wife, and I thought, this sounds really cool. And so basically the preface of the story is there's Calendria, which was an old world where everybody kind of lived in harmony, and the giants, there are three giant brothers, Balus, Crow, and Crassus, or Gull and Crassus, and they created this world as well as another world. The dragons are like their ancestors, and they created Calendria and helped run things. But then the humans and the goblins decide, you know what? We're kind of being mistreated because we want to use magic like everybody else, and they won't let us. So we start a war, and then almost all of the magical creatures get wiped out, and they rename it New Calendria. I know it's real original. But so that's kind of where this takes place, is New Calendria. And honestly, it was my first book, so I didn't even know how to world build. So there's basically, 5 different kingdoms. You have the Shades, which are elves. There you go. You found the other one. That's awesome. Yeah,
you might want to check on Amazon. They did not tie. They keep book 1 and book 2 are both listed as book 1 of their own series.
Yeah, I've done that a few. I've had to go in and correct it a few times, but good. I'm glad it's there. I wasn't sure if it would be there because last time I tried to look it up, they said there was no cover. But yeah, so
that's a cool image of a dinosaur kind of dragon.
Yeah.
Part ram. There's a lot going on there. It's really cool.
I like it.
Is concerned.
But yeah, and so it was originally 3 dragons, Bomer, Minzrai, and Plasma, and they were kind of the original creators of the world. And but yeah, so New Calendria is just that's where it takes place, and it's it's 5 kingdoms. You have the Shades, which are the elves. They live in the desert. They have gray skin. They're desert dwellers, and they have really colorful hair and eyes. And then you have the monks of Ganzuk, who live on an island, kind of away from everybody else. Then you have the dwarves that live in the fields of Tamora. And Aaron, he lives in Varna, which is home to the goblins. And then you have Pern, which, and it's different from Anne McCaffrey's Pern. I never even heard of her when I wrote this, but Pern is the home of the humans. So you have these 5 different kingdoms, and they're all just kind of broken and shattered and living their own thing, doing their own thing. That's kind of the preface of the book, is Terran comes in and discovers some things about himself that he didn't know were true. And by book 1 and book 2, basically everything's united again. Nobody's broken, the world's whole again, all because of Terran and kind of his friends forgetting grudges and letting go of some things from the past.
So would you say it's a traditional hero's journey tale?
Yeah.
As far as format?
Definitely. I would say it definitely has more vibes of like The Hobbit, where it's like
the
kid was just basically, Terran wants to know about his past because he knows he looks different. Varna is home to goblins. Terran's the only human there, and his whole life he's had to wear a mask because he's not supposed to be known that he's there. So he's wondering, why am I hidden? He's wondered his whole life, and nobody's been able to answer his question. So by the time he gets to be about 16, which is in the book, he's like, I'm really sick and tired of this. And that's when he runs into Clive, who's a monk, who's basically banished because he did something. He did something blasphemous and proclaiming that the dragon spoke to him. And so he meets Clive and goes, "This dude looks like me, but how is that possible?" And so after a fight with his goblin mom, he runs away from home with Clive, runs into a couple dwarves and a shade. And then that's kind of what sets this journey where he tries to uncover who he is and uncovers a lot more in the process. So that's kind of the whole gist of the way. He just goes on an adventure and uncovers some stuff. In book 2, kind of goes more forward with that. He knows who he is. Now they're trying to figure out, okay, what's going on here? We got to save the world now. We know because there are people are dying. All the magistrates are dying. All the royalty are being assassinated, and they don't know why. And so book 2 answers that question, and then they go and fix the problem and save the world, essentially.
So the elves live in the sand desert, whatever. Are there sandworms? I mean, you going full Dune on that?
Well, it wasn't inspired by Dune, but yes, actually, that's what, on the book here. It's called an Eckish, and it was actually inspired. I don't know if you've ever seen like a house centipede, but those things are freaking creepy. They scare the heck out of me. So I based my Eckish. I was like, imagine if that creature were freaking 20 feet long and trying to kill you. That's an Eckish. And it has got like an anglerfish design. You can see there where the light kind of attracts you and hypnotizes you, and then it kind of slowly digests you over time. And then you have sand snakes, which are you don't really meet them till the second book. So there's a few creatures there that exist in the sand in the desert, but nothing like Dune.
So have you seen the movie Tremors?
I have, yeah, I've seen Tremors.
That's another good sand creature.
Right, yeah. I haven't seen it in a long time, but yeah.
Did you watch any of the sequels?
Oh, they are deliciously, gloriously, badly good.
Oh, they're exactly. It's like guilty pleasure chocolate hidden in the back corner of your cabinet that's only for emergencies. You know, when you really want that, that dopamine hit. There's it gets to a point where you have a creature called an ass blaster. It's just, you're like, what am I watching? Give me the popcorn.
Yeah, it's like I love a good cheesy B movie though. There's something about the cringe that just makes it better with popcorn.
Right. Like Arachnophobia,
For me, the Anaconda was a little bit better in that regard.
Oh, really?
But of course, Nick and I are of the age where, you say Anaconda and we think Sir Mix-a-Lot, so it was kind of a good combination.
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah. But also the J-Lo.
Yeah. So when you were world building, when you were coming up with these monsters, like it sounds like you were letting nature inspire the creatures?
Yeah, I think a little bit. Like I said, I've been a huge fan of fantasy, and actually, so the Eckish was not part of the original draft. Just as I was going through editing it, I had some of my beta readers go, "Why don't something happen in the desert? Like it's just too peaceful." And I was like, you know what? That's a great point. I need a little bit more action. So, and I've always wanted to include those house centipedes because they're terrifying. They're harmless, but they're absolutely terrifying creatures. They have like 16 million legs, and they're gross. If you've never seen one, look it up. So that was one inspired, and then of course like sand snakes are. So essentially, it's a sand snake, but I called it a sank just because I wanted to mix it up. So I just I don't know. It was just something fun to do. I've learned that there's nothing fantasy. It's all created by J.R.R. Tolkien, Dungeons and Dragons, and so it's okay to have fun, mix them up a little bit. And actually, some of my monsters were inspired by Dungeons and Dragons. Actually, I downloaded the monster manual just to kind of look because I had no clue. But as I was going through, I saw some monsters. I was like, those would be really cool to put in a book. And so some of them were inspired by Dungeons and Dragons as well.
Okay. When it comes to the names, like you sound like you've got, what was the idea behind the naming pattern? Did you just make the words up because they sounded cool? Were you like bastardizing certain languages?
No. Honestly, Nara was totally invented. I like I said, I must have named these characters just off of inspiration because it was Taryn and Clive, Gala and Karth. Karth and Gala are the Gala's the mom of Taryn, the goblin mom, and then Karth is his brother, who's also a goblin. And there's Clive, and there's a few other names like Bargus, and Falcon. So yeah, it was probably just the nerdy part of me that just threw out some cool names. I had no inspiration behind them. However, the shades were actually based off of a little bit of Christopher Paolini's Shades from Aragon. I really liked the characters. I just didn't like how they were evil. And I didn't like how the movie portrayed the Shade. It ticked me off. So that's kind of where some of the shades came from. But instead of having like one or two, I had a whole race of them. And I gave them my own spin with giving them multicolored hair and eyes, because in my world, magic changes you. The more you use it, it'll alter you physically. And so Clive, so his eyes have been changed to look like dragon eyes because they use dragon magic. And the shades they're creatures born of magic. So magic comes to them naturally, but it's altered their appearance. And then the dwarves don't really dabble too much in magic, except for when they do, they're super strong because of that. And then as the book goes on, you learn that the assassins in the story, they're shadow assassins. Then they've been changed by magic too. So that's the whole premise of my story. And my editor was a big help too. My editor is my sister. She went to school for it. And I was like, hey, I need an editor. You need someone to work with. How about we work together? And she goes, sure. And she really enjoyed my story, but she was a huge help in actually asking those tough questions. Like, hey, how does this world work? Because I didn't do a very good job of world building when I first did it. It was pretty lame. It wasn't very coordinated. There wasn't a lot of lore. And so she made me really think, okay, how is this world going to work? And made sure it was consistent. Yeah, that's the best I can do with that question.
Okay. So with the magic that you use, is it like everybody has access to it? Is it innate to like the way you were born, or is it like access through rituals? Like how does the magic work in your world?
Yeah, so everybody can access it, but just not everybody does. Like Taryn, he doesn't know anything about it, nor does he want to use it originally, because he already had a hard time accepting his appearance, and he finally just got happy about it, But there does come a point in the book where he has to use magic. And yeah, anybody, once you know the words, you just basically call on the word. You just say the word, and the word can kind of summon the magic, and you just allow it to kind of flow through you, and it works on intent. And the magic language, just so you guys know, it's really not based off anything. I used a lot of different things. Like I used a lot of like draconic language, but there's also some other words like, Japanese. I just threw a bunch of words together. Like some of it's even Elvish, but I've twisted it to not be J.R. Tolkien Elvish, because I could get in trouble for that. So I just kind of give it my own spin. But like the meanings are there, and I have all the meanings written and stuff like that. But yeah, you just say the word and the magic comes.
Okay, that's cool. So when you do this, far as tech, obviously is it medieval?
Yes, yeah, very medieval. Swords, arrows. Taryn's actually an archer, and I think originally that he reminds me a lot of myself, because I love archery. Like I haven't been able to shoot a bow in forever, but that's like I love shooting archery. So I give a lot of that love to Taryn, and he's really good at it because he was a hunter for his family. And so throughout the book, until he gets a sword, he uses his bow a lot, and he's super quick. So yeah, there's swords and not really wizard staffs, but just mainly swords, arrows, that kind of stuff, axes.
Nice axe to the face. So do your dwarven women have beards like the traditional D&D? I never understood that one, but like that was just a thing back in the day.
No, I don't have too many. Well, one of them is mentioned, just the dwarf queen. She's mentioned, but they don't really have beards or anything like that. They're not super ugly. I just described them as normal women. They're just happen to be short. So as actually my sister actually said she liked it because it actually goes against the normal stereotype of fantasy. Like my elves, like my main elf Nara, she is really mean. Like she's angry. She beats up people a lot. She's
That
super.
tracks. Elves are jerks. I don't like elves. The dwarves are where it's at.
The dwarves they're a little bit more reasonable. But but they're definitely more warrior prone. But like I don't. It's just I feel the characters just kind of make themselves. Honestly, like they really write the book. And Nara, she was just mean because she's got a lot of issues with her parents. You know how they went missing, and doesn't like humans or goblins because of what they did to her people. And then the dwarves are kind of like, we feel the same, but we're the more profitable, the more prosperous people, simply because our king kind of broke those traditions. He was very kind, he was very generous. The goblins they're actually stereotypically goblins, except for Karth. Karth and Gala are pretty kind goblins, and Karth's really clever. So they just kind of, I guess, went against their common stereotypes. At least that was the review my sister left, was what she liked it, because they didn't. And then of course the elves are, they're not beautiful, elegant, fancy people. Some of them are really mean.
So do you have any favorite secondary characters in this world?
I mean, of course, there's Terran and Nara. Probably my other favorite character is Midas. He was best friends with the king, so he was kind of like a steward, but not. And then he later becomes king. He's probably one of my other favorite characters because he has a lot of, I guess, him and Gunther. Gunther is a warrior that went with Midas, or Bargus originally, who's a doctor, because Bargus was looking for a cure, and he doesn't have any warrior experience. So they sent Gunther with him. And Gunther, he was kind of the more humorous guy, very, very skilled warrior. So Gunther and Midas become pretty good friends, and he sticks around with everybody throughout it. So I would say Midas probably is my other favorite. He goes through a lot of. He's kind of like a secondary mentor to Terran, and so I was able to kind of give some of my, kind of share, I guess, dwarvenly wisdom with him, and he just had some cool growth as a character, I guess.
Cool. So we always ask this when we're talking individually about a book series, but given all the bad things you do to your main characters, if you met them in a dark alley, how's that faring for you?
Oh man, I think most of them I could get along with. I think Nara I would be afraid of, though, just because if you say something the wrong way, she'd throw me up against the wall and threaten to kill me or something. But I think Terran and Clive I'd get along with really well, because Clive's pretty chill, even though he's a bit older. And then of course Midas and Gunther I would get along pretty well. But yeah, definitely Nara I would be afraid of, a little bit nervous around her, because she's nice. You just have to really get to know her. Like she says a lot in the books. She's like, she basically says like I'm not completely cold-hearted. Like I know I have a heart. Like she's just rough around the edges.
Hearts are overrated. So the last question for me, unless you have any that you want to follow up on, but he speaks so fast, he's gotten all of our questions before we've asked them.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No,
that's a good thing.
I had
Sometimes
to teach myself. Yeah, and I had to teach myself to speak slower. When I was a kid, they called me Motor Mouth. After the mini cars, what was it? Micro Machine commercial guy.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be able to keep up with him. Yeah, that guy. I wonder if he's even still alive. Anyway, all right. So Nick, did you have any questions for him left? Because I know he answered a lot.
No, I think he covered everything that we would possibly ask about.
All right. So last two questions. One, are you going to be doing this in audiobook anytime soon?
I'm not sure. I do have a friend who said if you want to, I have a studio that I could hook you up with. I've thought about it, but I don't think it's in the cards just yet. I can do really good voices. I'm just very nervous to do it. And I don't know. As of right now, probably not, I guess, to answer the question. But definitely in the future, I don't think I'd be opposed to doing one. I just need a little bit more time to do it. I don't have a lot of time right now.
No, if you got young kids, that's understandable. And then last question, and this is maybe the most important one. So take a deep breath, let it out. Would you live in this world if you could?
Oh, absolutely, man. It'd be awesome. I would love to.
Even with the giant centipedes trying to eat your face.
That's only if you're in the desert. You have to put up with the goblins, but I would absolutely love to, because I could live anywhere. I could live with the monks if I can manage to get through the hurricane and the sandstorm. And of course I'd love to visit the Shades, just because they've built a civilization from nothing, but they are amazing with how their kingdom looks. They're good people. They got incredible stories. I'd love to live in Pern because it's located right on top of the mountains. It's literally a castle built in the mountains. And then Timor is just beautiful with, it's amber fields, and I'd love to meet, especially Taryn. I'd love to meet Taryn, go hang out with him for a little bit and get to know life through his eyes. Yeah, I would love to live in that world.
All right. Well, first, this is the part of the interview, dear listener, where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right books, and it is especially important with a debut author like Forrest. It does help get his books out there. It triggers the algorithms, tells Amazon to send it out there to everybody. Last question for you. Is it wide or Amazon exclusive?
It's Amazon exclusive. I was trying to do
Kindle Unlimited.
But it was having an issue there. So yeah, I'm on Kindle Unlimited and Amazon.
All right. And what would be, as we close this puppy up, because people are looking for what to get for Christmas and such, what would you say the rating, if we use like a movie scale rating, is it like PG-13, or like how would you rate this? Because we got some parents that listen. Would you they want to know if their kid could?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this was written by a 12-year-old essentially. So I would rate it, honestly, PG. There are a few parts that are kind of, maybe a little gruesome, but honestly, not really. It's very PG. There's no love interest. There's no sex scenes. There's no swearing. The swearing that I've made up is all based off that world. Because my biggest pet peeve is when someone goes, "Oh, let's create this fake world, but put real life swearing in it." I hate that crap. So all the swearing is based off of my own world. So it's very PG rated, I would say. I think Amazon asked me what I'd rate it, and it's 14 to 18.
So Nick, you want to hear funny?
Always.
If we were writing our books even today, we could still say they were written by 12-year-olds.
Yeah.
All right. So as we wrap up, where can listeners and viewers find you on the internet if they want to check you out?
I've got a Facebook page, just Forrest Jones. I also have an Instagram. I don't go on it too much, but I think it's Forrest Jones 24, and then I have a blog that I post as well once a month on Facebook, and then of course Amazon. But again, I'm just getting out there. I do want to go to a few book fairs here maybe next year. I'll try to go to like a YA book festival or something, kind of get my book out there. But yeah, that's where people can find me for now.
All right. And you can find us, dear listener, at our Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast, where we link to all the things, the BitChutes, the Rumbles, the YouTubes, the TikToks, the Twitters. We have our Blasters and Blades Facebook group and Facebook page. We have our email, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com for professional purposes only, people. Save the shenanigans over there from Madam Stabby Stab on the Instagram, Twitter, and the email. She gets bored, so hit her up. She might make you cry, but hey, you were warned. You can find us on our website over there on Spotify. Go to the link tree, click the Spotify link. It's a bunch of gobbledygook. Don't hate us, not our fault. But when you get there, you can check us out, listen to our episodes that way, or you can support the show. I used to say you could support the show on Spotify, but they're getting rid of that. So if you want to help us out, keep the lights on, you got to go to buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section that it is for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink all the hot chocolate they can with as much peppermint schnapps as they can legally buy at a store at once. That's for you, Stabby. And with that, jokes aside, you could also support the show by buying Coffee Brand Coffee and using the discount code podcast grunts. We get a kickback. You get 10% off. They help an American company buying beans roasted in America. So it's a win-win. Shop local, people. It's the best thing you can do for the economy and the environment. And you support local artisans, also a good thing. And with that, I would like to thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. And with that, thanks for coming on, Forrest. This was fun.
Absolutely. I had a blast.
All right. With that, we're going to hit the end button. Wait for it, Nick. Stop cussing.